So Julia, I'm talking today with Julia Powell, and she's in Wales, and I'm in northern Idaho. So we're kind of spanning the internet here, and hopefully every once in a while we're having trouble with the cameras freezing. So, but we can hear each other. So we hope that the recording will be clear with us talking. But Julia and I, the reason we're talking is because Julia is looking after her mom in Wales and is the primary caregiver. And so very often her mom's question comes up about wanting to go home. And Julia's been talking with us about that, and we've been talking on Twitter about it. And so Julia and I thought we'd just get together and talk face to face over Zoom. So Julia, thanks so much. And why don't if you start maybe by telling us a little about what typically is happening for you and your mom?
Well, Mum often doesn't recognise her home that she's lived in for 20 years, and sometimes she does, but more often she doesn't. And so often at the end of the day, maybe any time from about 5 o'clock onwards, she thinks it's time that she needs to get going somewhere. Yeah. And sometimes around that time, she may get agitated. So she's feeling anxious and she feels she needs to go home.
Yeah.
And it changes. What situation she thinks she's in changes. And I often don't know exactly what situation she thinks she's in. If she's very calm and everything is fine, when it comes to going to bed, I do a number of things to try and kind of give her signals that this is where we're staying.
Yeah.
And getting ready for bed an hour or so before bedtime. Even 2.5 hours before bedtime, I will introduce the idea early, and especially if she's slightly tired, I suggest it as a way of, it would be easier for her when she wants to go to bed, if she falls asleep now, and all the rest of it. Occasionally.
So she's been in that same home now over 20 years. And is her home, is it in a city or a town or a village or rural? What would be her usual, like her previous pattern? And you had mentioned that your mom doesn't have anosognosia. She is very, and has been very aware that she's experiencing dementia.
It's difficult to know. I think she is aware she's experiencing dementia, but her awareness comes and goes. So she had moments of extreme distress about the fact she's losing her memory, and she very rarely uses the word dementia.
Right.
But I think she has an awareness of it.
To me, it would be so terrifying to know that I was losing my memory, or, to understand that I was becoming unable to make decisions or understand what I needed to do to keep myself safe. I think security, that fear and lack of security, is one of the primary problems.
Yes. Mum hasn't said it for a while, but she used to say, I'm scared out of my pants. And she used to repeatedly say how frightened she was. This is when she was in the care home.
Yeah.
She doesn't talk about that level of fear now she's at home, but she's still obviously, she still has some awareness that she can't remember what just happened, and that worries her.
Yeah. So, so she was in a care facility, and then you brought her home to her previous home.
Yes.
When was that? Did she recognize her home at that time?
Well, no, she didn't. She sometimes recognizes it from outside.
Okay.
And yes, I mean, there were a couple of times I took her from the care home to her home to see if she recognized it.
Yeah.
And sometimes she did and sometimes she didn't.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
It just depends what areas of the brain are being affected by the dementia, and it depends what brought the dementia on, as to whether people they have good days or they have bad days, or whether it's more consistent decline, and consistent decline is more of an Alzheimer's pattern. But so the reason I'm asking these questions is I'm kind of shaping, so like for your mom in the care facility, she was really afraid, knowing she was in a strange place. And so often people say, I just want to go home. And when they're saying that, it can be an expression of so many different meanings, for each person. And that's why this is why I thought you and I should talk for a while, face to face, because there's so many possible reasons. So, like sometimes somebody who says, I want to go home, and what they've done is they've looked around at their surroundings, and having lost their memory and their memory skills, they look at everything around them and they don't recognize anything. So nothing looks familiar. And in not feeling like they're in a familiar place, then what they do want is to go to that familiar place. They want to feel at home. They want to feel safely surrounded by the familiar. And so the expression is, I want to go home. Whereas what they're really saying is, oh, I just need to feel at home. I need to feel in a secure place, a place where I know everything. And that one hurts because we can't give them that. That would require regaining memory skills and regaining access to memories that are gone.
She's actually said to me once, probably when I was trying to, I don't know, I can't remember what I had said, but she actually spelt it out for me because I'm a bit slow. She said, I want to feel safe. So it's obviously a strong feeling, even and I hoped by bringing her home that having a family member nearby, I didn't expect her to always remember the house or even not to remember the house at all. But I just thought having a family member, her daughter nearby, would give her that security. But that's not enough.
Yeah, because in the end, people, with dementia, when you start losing these memory skills, and who knows, I mean, maybe those memories are still embedded and the person can't reach them because they've lost the skills, the ability to get there into the past. But it, you were right to do that, because sometimes I've seen clients where if you put together enough items that were once a familiar, secure past, they regain it. And then they can learn it again by experience, just by being there day after day. But even when they do succeed in learning it, they eventually lose it anyways. Because when we lose our memory skills, we end up in the 3-second present. We end up in the now. If I have no memory skills at all, then I live in the present. I'm not able to go back at all. So every 3 seconds, I'm in a brand new world. And then if I don't have rational thinking skills, I can't anticipate, plan, or envision anything happening in the future. So this is why people end up living in the present, living in the psychological now, unable to go back or to go forward. And if if we as their companions, if we understand they're living there, then we can work within that framework, and we can work it for a positive. But so very often, like when I am able to isolate with a client and understand that and I'm always thinking, what's the emotional need? What does this person emotionally need? What are they expressing emotionally right now? with their words, because we never know if the words are accurate. You know, words, they could have lost the word they need. They could be creatively using an English word in a manner we don't normally use it. Or they could be saying something entirely wrong. It could be word salad, and that's the best they can do. And they aren't even conscious that they're not expressing their thoughts accurately. All of that can happen. So I'm always listening for the emotion. And when I find somebody saying to me emotionally, oh, I just need to feel secure. I just need to feel surrounded by things I know are safe and things I have found in my experience, this location to be my safe place. That then, knowing that or hearing that emotion, then I can validate it and I can agree with them and say, oh, you know, I know, I wish I could go back to my home where I felt so safe and I just loved it. And I had my favorite chair and I had, you know, when I looked out the window, it was just, you know, something a view I'd always looked out, you know, and I can describe my favorite home to my client. But so accepting that emotion and agreeing with them and feeling it with them and partnering with them in that feeling. But then we can't give them the sense of familiarity back. So then I offer the best thing I can offer. All I can offer is, you know, it's you and me and we're both here right now. And let's just be together. You know, let's be safe together here. Because this is a good place and I've been here before. And I know we're safe here. And look at this, isn't this pretty? Or let's look out the window at that view and we'll just make do for today, just for tonight, you know, and nothing's ever forever. It's all, not just for now, because just now is all they really have. So I can work with that. But
yes, I often say, you know, I often kind of try and present it as a temporary thing, perhaps.
Yes.
But you know, I'll help you find home tomorrow. Or if she doesn't know who I am, or if she does, we'll go home tomorrow. And you know, sometimes she's like, oh, you know where that is, or she lived for nearly 25 years in Hong Kong, so she doesn't sometimes know if she's in Hong Kong or if she's here. But another thing that comes up is, I can't sleep here. There's no room for Hayden, her husband. Or where's Hayden going to sleep? Or where's your dad? Then she knows I'm her daughter. Where's Dad going to sleep?
Yep.
Or where are her parents going to sleep? Or where's her son going to sleep? And trying to deal with all that without letting her know, without reminding her that they're long gone.
Yes.
It's like another potential area.
Oh, it's a time, it's a complete, it just ignites everything. I mean, it destroys all sense of comfort in what you think the world is about or where you think you are in the present. And, you know, so it always just breaks my heart when people want to, here in the US, they call it reality orientation, and it's a technique they use with PTSD very effectively. And mental illness, I worked for a while as a psychosocial skills trainer before I went to law school. And we would use reality orientation, and what that is when somebody's confused about the present and about what's reality right now. You orient them to time and place, and then you correct any misconceptions about the facts of what's true today, and then you redirect. Well, you know, if I'm experiencing a flashback, a PTSD flashback, that's super. You know, I mean, it's really kind to tell me that what I'm experiencing is not true, and the present is far less scary and dangerous. But if I have dementia and I don't have rational thinking and I don't have memory skills, I can't compare what you're telling me to what I think is true. So I can't analyze. So I can't come up. So all I can do is believe you and feel, you know, terrified that my own brain has misled me. Or I can not believe you and be angry at you. And so that's when you get into that, like, where's dad, or where's my husband, or where's, you know, my son, where's my dog, you know, these things come up. And so, you know, again, I love you saying everything's temporary, because what I usually will do is say, yeah, he's not here right now. Do you think he worked late? Or they're all together, and I think we're meeting them tomorrow. I'm sure it was tomorrow, but you and I are here tonight, or, you know, and so postponing what we cannot do until a later time, but agreeing and partnering, you know, that, and agreeing that it would be lovely if they were here, you know, is so helpful. But, you know, you mentioned Hong Kong, so more than 20 years in Hong Kong. So your mom had this entire stretch of memories and a past life spent in a very different home. You know, and I think Hong Kong to a small town or a village in Wales must be incredibly different. So does she have specific memories of her home in Hong Kong too?
I mean, they lived in lots of different places when they were in Hong Kong. So there is no one place that that would loom large for her.
Okay.
It's more a sense of, sometimes she thinks she's there.
Okay.
And she wants to get back to the UK, or it's the other way around. She wants to get back to Hong Kong.
Okay. Yeah. Well, you know, because you know, there's that, the original that we talked about, the first situation we talked about, is when the person can't feel like they're in a familiar place and they can't feel secure. So you can agree with them, introduce your own favorite home, and then say, this place, I've been staying here, this is a safe place, stay here with me tonight, and tomorrow let's go to your home. Or if sometimes we'll have people who remember a very specific home that no longer exists, or a very specific home that still exists, and they know they're not there, you know, and so if that's the situation, that's a little different, because then I'm not dealing with an insecurity and fear of where I'm at. Then I'm dealing with knowledge. I know I'm here, and I know I'm not there, and I know I want to be there.
Yes.
And
yes,
so,
it's not that with mom.
Not that with your mom. When it is that way for people, it's a little easier, because then you can say, you know, right now they're serving dinner here, let's eat dinner here. And then, you know, so you once again, it's temporary, and you're going to put whatever the change or the desire is to the future. But it's so much more complicated when it's the security issue that the person is, you know, that you're dealing with as a carer, as the companion. So, you know, most of the, I think, you know, the primary need usually is that security, and it's, you know, the key, I think, is just to be sure that when she expresses it, you know, how does, you know, and it sounds odd, I know I always say this, but like, how does it work? How does eye contact work for your mom?
Oh, I think eye contact is comfortable. It's, yeah, so we frequently have eye contact.
So, and I don't know, well, we're getting feedback, aren't we? But
are we? Sorry.
But you know, I haven't met her, so I don't know where she's at or anything. But you know, as people progress, and in my book, the second book, I kind of list the way I see my clients go through these stages, you know, as they're losing cognitive skills. And, you know, we all start out independent, and maybe a little mildly cognitively impaired, and we're starting to have memory problems, and we might start having some judgment problems, you know, where our rational thinking becomes unreliable or intermittent. And so we start having more trouble with our attention span, you know, maintaining our attention or redirecting attention. We get into these cyclical things that we can't escape. And then something happens, and the person becomes uncertain about their own cognitive abilities, their own ability to navigate their personal world. And they're uncertain, so they want a little more help, but all they really want is to know they'll see another person within 24 hours. You know, they really don't want their personal world invaded, but they know that they just would like to have someone checking in on them. And then you go a little further, and the person now has lost enough memory skills that they're not able to retain information for long enough to make a choice. So, you know, like normally when we want to make a decision about something, we can hold all kinds of information in our minds and select between 3 or 4 options very rapidly. But with dementia, you can't do it anymore. And that's, I call it follow the leader. Because it's, you know, it's like, well, darling, whatever you're having, you know, oh, I don't mind, you know, whatever you would like to do is fine. You know, and that's the person who can't draw to mind enough what can be done to choose and to exercise volition and act on their own behalves. But the next one is clinginess, and this is where this eye contact really starts to come out, because, you know, I'll find even my clients that are really reserved, and even when they've come from a family culture where there's not a lot of hugging or, you know, physical contact, then they come to need repeated and often eye contact, just like visually checking in and connecting. And they also come to need more like an arm on their elbow, or you know, like I'll find, like, even when I have a really really high-powered businessman, a CEO, you know, or the dean of one of the colleges or something like that, and they get to this stage, and when we're about to walk into a building or open a door and go into a room, here's this big, tall, strong man, and all of a sudden he's leaning in. You know, they just need a little more physical reassurance. And so I think it's, again, because people end up living in 3 seconds, you know, in this cycle now. And so if you and your mom are sitting in the living room, and maybe you're, you know, watching television or reading the newspaper or looking at The View or having a cup of tea or whatever it is you're doing, and she looks up and she looks across at you, and she thinks to herself, who is that woman over there? And then the next thing she might think is, my goodness, that woman isn't speaking to me. She hasn't said a word. And so what is she doing in here? Where am I? And then the sense of security evaporates. And so what I try to explain, like, even when I'm working with families, and I'll get families, you know, and I don't know personal culture of families, but even when it's, you know, often in couples, you know, where it might have been normal in their marriage and their relationship to get up in the morning and not really speak to each other, not say good morning, not to make eye contact, to go through their own personal private morning routines and end up drinking their coffee or their tea or whatever, and then begin speaking later in the day. When somebody has no memory and they're living in the now, they need constant this visual contact, that they have been acknowledged, that they are not being ignored. So, you know, like, I wonder, and it sounds odd to talk about this, but on the other hand, if your mom is repeatedly needing the sense of familiarity and security, if it's security that's the essential reason for I want to go home, or I need to find a place, you might be able to build in more like eye contact and reassurance, physical reassurance, and that then you'll see this end of the day need for more security go away. I mean, I don't know how to explain it really, but I've seen that happen with so many people.
That it makes a lot of sense. Sometimes we've sat in the living room and I'm sitting on the sofa opposite her, and I speak to her and she's looking around, and I realized that although we've been, you know, together all day, she didn't realize she thought she was on her own.
Right.
And
Yeah.
Yeah. And I suppose if it was more of a physical contact, because sometimes you just cannot keep up a conversation, or you cannot keep engaging with someone.
No, you can't.
But a physical contact would
That's
be easier.
And you know, maintaining a conversation with someone who lacks memory skills is very, very taxing. You know, I talked with a woman yesterday, and that was her primary problem. She said, you know, I see my mom every week for a couple of hours, and every time I go, it's the same conversation, and all, you know, it's just a few. It's like, how are you, and how's your day, and how's your family? You know, so the woman, the mother, is trying to be gracious, to be a good hostess.
Yes.
This younger woman who has shown up and has come for a visit, and so expecting to have your visit, your time with your loved one, be centered around conversation is, you know, you're setting yourself up to fail as well as them, because that's not going to be where their skills lie. So you're right, you can't maintain this sense of togetherness through this ongoing thread of conversation. But you know, if you can think about eye contact, and with dementia, it becomes a little extended. You know, like normally we just catch each other's eyes, and different cultures differ. I think, like when I emigrated from Canada to the United States, I found that Americans they had much less personal space, and they stood way too close to me as a Canadian, and they looked at me for too long, and they talked too loud, and they said amazingly embarrassing things and asked questions very brazenly, all of which I've gradually assimilated over the last 40 years. But you know, when somebody doesn't have memory to keep the thread of where we have come from in the last hour or hour, excuse me, then just catching their eye. And I kind of, to me, what I do with my clients, I'm always looking for their eye contact. And if I catch them looking around, I'll say something, catch their eye, and then you can kind of just like deliver, you know, it's kind of like delivering an emotional burst of love or acceptance. You know, I don't know quite how to put that into words, but because dementia doesn't take away our intuitive thinking skills, people feel emotions so strongly. And so if you're feeling a little apprehensive, they'll begin to feel apprehensive. But if you can kind of gather up this affection and love for them and just catch their eye and just deliver it, then that will infuse the minutes going forward. And you know, and you and I, we haven't talked at all about mood or mood management. And you know, I don't, Julia, I don't even know if you've read the book I put out this year, but
not the latest one.
Okay, so I detail, so like Dawn, that first little book I put out is looking at dementia through the metaphor of skills kept and skills lost. Okay, well then the second book I put out, which I think has confused everybody terribly because I did 2 books in 2 years. But the second book, it's much longer because it took me a lot more. It took 300 pages to describe, but is looking at dementia through the metaphor of the emotional needs caused by losing your skills, your cognitive skills. And so, you know, and I use a flower because I think, you know, a big part of living intuitively, or living and being a companion of somebody who's experiencing dementia, which means to be forced to live intuitively. It's in the pursuit and recognition of beauty. You know, beauty as delivered by all 5 of our senses. Beauty being very personal, something that is beautiful to me might not be beautiful to my companion. You know, so we have to really become aware of what's beautiful for our loved ones. Beauty of relationships, beauty of emotion, you know, and the beautiful emotion would be gratitude. You know, that's what beauty is in the world of emotions. But so this I explore, and the very, you know, the first needs are security, but the primary need in security is mood. You know, that we need to be saved from the the way our separation from our pasts, our inability to recall and retain what's going on from one minute to the next, we can't maintain or experience good positive moods if we're experiencing dementia unless our companions bring them for us and present us with positive moods, bring positive moods. And if our companions do, you know, and mood management, the most important thing I think I can teach, and that's why it's the first thing I teach, is that whatever emotion we are experiencing as the companions of a person experiencing dementia, if we are experiencing it, they are reading it. If they are reading it, they are going to reflect it back to us. Mm. And so if I'm a daughter and I walk into my mom's room in the care facility, and as soon as I see her there and she looks sad, I feel guilty. You know, I feel so bad because I can't come as often as I wish, and I wish she could live with me, and I wish I could, you know, I wish. But if I feel guilt, she'll pick it up, and then she'll feel guilty, but she won't have rational thinking or memory, so she can't imagine why or what, but she'll internalize that something terrible, something bad's happened, and she ought to feel bad about it. You know, or, you know, if I'm frustrated, immediately my companion and my clients, you know, I went through this with my clients all the time. I'd be frustrated about traffic, and all of a sudden they're irritated with me because I'm they're mirroring frustration back at me. You know, with rational thought. If I'm frustrated, they're frustrated. Well, it's like, okay, well then it's not my fault. So what'd you do? So you're at fault. That's what they always arrive at. So, you know, this being able to manage mood up front could help with her arriving later in the day feeling uncertain and insecure. And so that would be something you could do, you know. And I guess I always say, you know, if whether we realize it or not, we are already managing the mood of a person who's...
Oh, absolutely. I'm very conscious that I need to be on the ball in order to engage Mum. You can't, she can't be left, you know, without her becoming agitated, or, you know, you can't. So it is a constant thing, and I'm very conscious I need to be sort of exuding warmth and positivity and all the rest of it. And I, you know, as you're talking, I do wonder, well, maybe by the end of the day I'm actually losing the plot myself. I'm looking for easy things to do, like watch TV with her, and talk to her. I never kind of put on the TV and think that'll do the job, but the stimulation is coming from somewhere else.
Yeah, but you can't help but be tired. Both of you are tired by the end of the day. You know, does she take a nap? And then when she will take a nap after lunch, and I now make sure that I also rest at that time. Sometimes I would kind of get on with the dishes or something, and then just about the time I'm thinking I could do with a sit down or a rest, then she's, you know, she's ready, she's up. And she needs to get home, or she needs to whatever. Do you think she dreams? And she dreams of home, of happier times?
Sometimes, if she sleeps deeply after lunch, she is completely disorientated when she wakes up, and sometimes with that she can be quite down. So I don't know if she dreams of home. I now try and kind of wake her up in a gentle way. I try and wake her up so she doesn't sleep too long.
Yeah. So, you know, so the next thing I think about then is when when she begins to really want to go home, and it kind of sounds like I'm not secure here. I want to go where I would feel secure. And it's the time of day that we should be going home. But would it help? And this helps with some of my clients. So all of this, you just try these things and then you see what works with that particular person. But it might help. So when she introduces that topic, then I'll agree and start talking about my favorite home. Then I ask the client to start telling me more about their favorite home. And pretty soon we're just companions enjoying our favorite homes, and neither one of us are where we wish we could be, which is and you can see that realization, they reach that realization. So that will work really well with some clients, and some clients do it daily, because they always want to go home. Other clients, it's more not so much a security need, but they need to feel more recognized as a person and more connected to who they were, even if they're not able to even consciously understand that. And so then what I'll try, so if it didn't work to commiserate or to enjoy our memories of our favorite homes and think about our favorite homes, if that doesn't work, then I start thinking about this person's stories and what I know about this person's past, and I start sharing their memories with them. And I do that thinking you're not so much thinking of home or insecurity. What you need is to know that you're a good person, that you have lived a good life. And so when I see that, then I'll start saying to the client, and I'll say, oh, yeah, we've been talking about homes, and boy, I miss home too, just like you do. I'm from Canada, and I lived in Victoria, and and I miss, and I liked, and then I'll say, but what I remember you telling me. I remember you telling me about when you were a little girl, and you told me that one client, I had sisters, and it was, you told me that your daddy, that he was a traveling salesman, and so the gasoline was free for him, and that every Sunday he would get you and your sister in the car, and the three of you would go driving around in the prairies, and he would sing cowboy songs. And so I start to tell her all these memories, these happy memories that are hers. And of course, I've memorized them over the years, because I know if her companions don't memorize her memories, once she can't recall or regather them or retell them, it'll be lost, and I don't want her to be lost. So I'm the collector, I'm the memory keeper, and the storyteller. And so I'll begin telling her about these wonderful memories, and then I build and come forward and tell her about her anything I know. Because I've been digging all the time I've been with my clients. I'm digging. I want to know about their lives. I want to know what was important to them. I want to know what made them feel successful, what made them feel loved, who loved them, who they loved. And then my storytelling is to recount for them in the present what a good life they've lived, how much they were loved, and how much they have loved. And this works from where your mom's at, it works all the way through the end where a person becomes nonverbal. And it breaks my heart when I hear people say, oh, that's not my wife anymore. I had a man to his wife in front of her, he'd say, well, this isn't my wife anymore.
Oh, that's awful.
Isn't it? Or people who would say, I lost my mother. No, you didn't. Your mother was lost. She was lost to memory, the loss of memory skills, but she could have avoided that if you had told her memories. Because who are nonverbal, and one woman living in an adult family home in the state of Washington, and when I go over there, the caregivers tell me, well, she hasn't spoken. She hasn't spoken at all since you were here last. And and it's somebody who has to be spoon-fed, who can barely swallow, somebody who's no longer ambulatory. But if I sit there and and you know, I never reach out and grab somebody. Like, and I always tell families this: if I can't recall who you are or who anybody is because I've lost rational thinking and factual information, then everybody's a stranger. The most important thing you can tell me is who you are and who I am in our relationship. You know, so I always start out with that, and I'll say, "Oh, Mary, it is so good to see you. I'm your good friend Judy. You and me, we've known each other for 9 years, and we really love each other. And boy, did we have fun. We have had so much fun. You know, I remember when." And then by that time, I'm sitting beside the person, and then I'll say, "Oh, Mary, feel my hands. You know, it's so cold outside. It's so nice and warm in here. Feel my hands." And, you know, and then pretty soon she's holding my hands because she wants to warm them up. But, you know, and it's not because we're friends, because she still doesn't, you know, but it's just like playing music for people, their own personal music, the music that makes them alive. You tell them their stories in their own words, in their own phrases, the way you memorized having heard them. They come alive. And so pretty soon Mary's she's, you know, holding my hands, and then she's clasping my hands, she's laughing, you know, we're both got tears in her eyes, and we're remembering, and pretty soon she's talking to me. So people, you know, when we become the storyteller, that can meet that deep need to know that you've lived a good life and you are loved.
Yeah.
So maybe that's a good activity then for end of day, before dinner.
Yes.
After nap.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Very good. Yeah. Very good idea. We're working on Mum's life story, and I say life story. I'm using a very simple template.
Yeah.
Mum has never offered much information about herself. Yeah. And post-dementia, it's like getting blood out of a stone. But with the use of photos and some lovely questions from this template, and repeatedly going back to it and again and again and again, I've now got some things, some of her memories, and that exactly has happened using her words. Yeah. She said something. She said something to me about, "Oh, you've just brought it right back to me." The way you described it's brought it back to me. You know, the using her words. Was so helpful. Yeah, it just activates intuitive thinking. It's something about experiential learning, I think. Well, so now I've kept you quite a while. You know, do you want to ask me anything, you know, before we sign off? Would you, or share anything you think, you know, if for other people who are experiencing the same thing, this I want to go home, and how to meet that need? There's a lot of useful material there, and the fact you've recorded it means I can go and I couldn't write notes while you were talking. No, but that there's a lot there to work with. I don't know, there's something about, but what if none of that works? Because sometimes I do feel like, oh, but I've tried everything. Obviously, I haven't tried everything. But yeah. And it's 10 o'clock at night, and Mum is insistent on putting her coat on and needs to leave. Yeah. You know, to me, it's just like having small children. And at that point, you know, if the child will not be able to sleep, you know, the car ride, go for a car ride, and eventually she'll fall asleep. Cup of tea. I'm a tea drinker, you know, and in America, I usually try to translate that into a cup of coffee for the stuff. But, you know, you do
get to these times where just nothing is working. And authentic emotion from you. And this is funny because it's kind of sounds like I'm talking about reality orientation, but you know, there are times where I've with a client, I recount one time where a client had, you know, had actually picked up from the kitty litter box, just picked up poop with bare hands, not knowing. And so my reaction was visceral. She wanted to go, yeah. She's like, oh, let's go get in the car, I'm ready now. And she wiped her hand on her pants. And my reaction was so visceral that she stopped her dead. And she said, well, honey, if it matters that much to you, okay, I'll change. And I had another client where the dad was absolutely convinced. The dad had dementia, the mom was the caregiver, the daughter was the backup caregiver. They were all living together. And the father, every night, he would begin to berate his wife for having an affair. And the poor woman and the poor daughter, you know, and the man, I mean, he was heartbroken and angry about her having, and of course she wasn't having an affair. And yet how to convince him that when she went to the grocery store, she was going to the grocery store. And so this daughter one evening, just heartbroken and beside herself, she grabbed her father by the elbow. She took him to the living room forcibly. She pushed him down in his chair. And she said, Daddy, enough already. You are breaking my heart. You are breaking my mother's heart. No more about this. Mother is not having an affair. I don't ever want you to hear this from you ever again. And it was good for like about a week. But it was that heartfelt, visceral emotion. Yeah. So yeah. As a carer, when you lose it, when you are heartbroken, when you are at your wit's end, be honest, and it is okay. And people rise to the occasion. We are. It is so overwhelming to spend time with somebody whose brain is not working properly. Who's functioning with half the number of skills they have been functioning with your entire life, and theirs too. So that's one thing. Don't feel guilty, and being honest emotionally sometimes is the best reaction. And then the only other thing we can do is just try to distract and routine. I think you're already doing this with routine, but building these routines. And then having tools, and I'm a baby boomer. Technology did not come naturally to me. And my friend Debbie Dodds, she's a gerontologist and she's a partner at Generation Connect, and she has been working on me for 4 years to clue in about YouTube and music and headphones and MP3 players, whatever. There used to be the iPod Shuffle, and I had mastered that, but have a little MP3 player and a set of soft headphones. And when your mom is agitated, having maybe half a dozen songs that for her calm her soul. You can say, well, Mommy, okay, I'm going to arrange that. I'm doing it as quick as I can. Would you like to sit down and listen to your music before while I take care of this? Or I just have to get the meal ready. So you want to have a few tools kind of, in your arsenal, and that personal music. I like my clients to have one MP3 player that is music that heals the soul and calms the broken heart. And then another one that is just music that makes their head move and their hands tap. And in my book, we describe Debbie's mom, Hazel, and how Debbie went through hundreds of songs on Pandora and on YouTube, finding, and she found 8 songs that make her mother come to life, and she begins singing along, and her feet are tapping, and she's conducting and completely alive with happiness in this her music. So you need to have these tools in your arsenal. And other times it's just going to go wrong, and you can't feel terrible about it. It's just, that's just, that happens.
Yeah.
So, you know, we just do what we can. So, but all right, I shall let you go. You and your husband, it's time for dinner. So for me, it's time for me to tackle my never-ending email boxes. So, because I am here.
Thank you so much.
Oh, you know, Julia, it's just been lovely talking with you. So we'll stay in touch, and hopefully, you know, when you review, if you've got more questions, just let's email. And hopefully we will come up with, you know, some answers that help other people too. So
thanks ever so much. There's lots of really wonderful ideas there.
well, good. I'm glad. So we will talk again soon, and I'll sign us off. Thank you.
Bye.